Today we'll cover the second part of the mock STAAR for 6th grade mathematics that was given to students from Brown Middle School. And so last time, with the first part of the video, I was able to cover problems 1 through 21. And so today, we're going to start on question number 22. Okay, so we'll go over those. So let's see, we have question 20, question 21, 22. Okay, and it seems like we did go over this one. 22, we had a ratio, I remember that. It was a ratio of the chemical solution to water. The one for Megan was a 5 to 1, and the one for Desmond was a 8 to 2, which turns into, if we divide 8 by 2, we get 4. And then we divide 2 by 2, we get a 2. So, I'm sorry, we get a 1. So then Megan had the biggest ratio, so therefore you can say that she used more solution per gallon of water. That was answered correctly. So let's see, maybe it's 23. So yes, 23 is the problem we need to complete. So let's see, we have XY plane here. A coordinate grid is shown below, and so the question is, which order pair describes a point that is located 4 units to the left of the origin and 4 units below the x-axis. So let's see. We know the origin is here, the intersection of the x and y-axis, and it has a coordinates 0, 0. Origin. And this is very important to remember. And so we want a point that is going to be 4 to the left. So it's like we're moving this little point 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it says here that we want to move it 2 units below the x-axis. So that means we're going to move it down. So from being here, 1 and 2 below. And so what happens is that the point from being here now is going to be here. And the coordinates of that point will be -4, because we moved to the left. So it makes sense. And 2 down, so that's going to be also negative. So -2. And so that point is going to be in quadrant 2, not 2, 3. So this is what we call quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the correct answer for this question is C. You got that one right as well. So let's move on to question 24, and we have in a triangle. In a triangle with the measures x, y, z. So the name of the triangle is x, y, z. So let's say x, y, z. The measure of the angle YXZ. So this is important how you plot your angle, because the letter that is in the middle is going to be the vertex of that particular angle. So we start with Y, and then we go to X, and then we go to Z, because I'm following the same order of the letters from here. So then one in the middle will be here. And so that is what we call the angle Y, X, Z. This is just another symbol for angle. Okay, so if we know that that angle is equal to 50 degrees, and the measure of another angle we have here, X, Y, Z. So let's look at that one. So we'll start with X, and then we go with Y, and then Z. So we're talking about this one. So y, the letter in the middle, is the vertex of that angle. So that one is equal to 75. And so we want to know what is the measure of the other angle, which happens to be xzy. So I will start here, zy. So this one here. So we want to know that that angle is equal to. So one thing you should know is that all the sum of the interior angles of a triangle is equal to 180 degrees, just like a straight angle. You can remember that. And so, because of that, we could say that the total of 180, if we subtract the two angles that we already know, one of them is 50 and the other one is 75. So let's see what we get. So if we subtract 50, we're going to get 130 degrees. And then if we subtract the second angle, which is 75, then we're going to get 55. So that will be the correct answer, 55 degrees. Now, if you want to check your work, which I strongly recommend, you could add all three of them. So if we say this is 55, and we add them, 50 plus 75 plus 55, let's see if we get 180. So we get 0, carry 1, and yeah, we get 180. So that's how you can also check your work. So let's move on to question 24. And you got this one right, so let's just do it quickly. So the rectangle shown represents the base of a rectangular prism. The height of the prism is 2 inches. The height of the prism is 2 inches. Which measurement is closest to the volume of the prism in cubic inches? So right here, remember, this is what is the base. So this is like if you were looking at the rectangular prism from above. Like if it was maybe on the floor and you're just staring at it. So the prism, it will go somehow like that. Oh, I didn't get too technical there. But we already have the measurement, and just keep in mind that this is the height, right? And so the height, they're telling us that it is 2 inches. And so to calculate the volume of the prism, it will be the area of the base. So I'm going to use capital B for that. But in reality, we know the base is a rectangle, so it's actually lowercase b for the base of the rectangle, not the base of the prism, times the height of the base of the rectangle. So that is equivalent to this capital B, all right? So we do that, and then we also need to multiply it times this h. And this h is more than the h, the height of the prism. And so sometimes formulas can get a little confusing because you have one h here, and then you have another one here. So I'm just going to use a different color for now, but I want you to keep in mind this one is the area of the base of the prism. So in reality, another way to write this formula for a rectangular prism will be something like length times width times height. So one thing you have to remember, and as long as you do this, you'll be fine if you're finding volume. The question is find volume, that you could just multiply all three dimensions, and that's how you are going to calculate your volume. So we're going to have the volume is going to be 2 3/4. So I'm going to turn that into an improper function. So number. So 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11. So 11 fourths. So I'm going to use that instead. 11 fourths times 4. 4 over 1. So we're going to multiply fractions. And then finally we have 2. So let's see what we get when we multiply fractions. We're just going to go straight across. So all the numerators, 11 times 4 is 44, times 2 is 88. And then the denominator, so 4 times 1 times 1, so it is 4. And so 88 divided by 4 is going to equal to 22. And so that will be the answer. Now we're talking about volume. So the units, of course, are very important, and that will be in cubic inches. And so we got that one here. Get that one right, so good one. So let's go to number 26. And so 26, we have a company spent 32% of its annual budget developing a new machine. What fraction of the company's budget was spent developing the new machine? So here what we need to do is a little conversion. And so 32%, and the number percent, it literally means that, 32%. And what it means is it translates into 32 for every 100. If you know a little bit of Spanish, you'll know that 100 in Spanish is 100. So that's how that word cent is derived from that. And so 32 over 100. And then if I want to turn this into reduce the fraction, for example, I know that 32 can be divided by 2, it will be 16. 50 can be divided by 2, 100 can be divided by 2, it will be 50. Now we can divide one more time. I can say 16 divided by 2 is 8, and then 50 divided by 2 is 25. And so that's how this was the correct answer. So moving on, 27, which lists shows the temperatures in order from coldest to warmest in degrees Fahrenheit. And so the coldest, you need to remember that temperatures sometimes go below 0. And so if we look at the number line, we'll have 0 here, and then I see numbers like 5, positive 5, perhaps 8, and maybe 10. But if we look in the negative direction, we will have something like -5, -8, -10. So then the coldest or the lower temperature was, of course, this one, -10. Then we have -5, then 0, and then 8. So that one is correct. Here, this one is wrong because of this 2. This one is wrong because this one should be at the end, actually. That's the warmest. And here, let's see what we could say. Well, -5 right away should be before 0, and so should be this one, because they're both negative. So moving on to 28. So Sarita will construct a rectangle that has a height of 4 units and an area up to 48 square units, which inequality represents all the possible lengths in units of the bases that Sarita can use to construct this rectangle. So let's see, I'm a little lost at first. So we have that the height is 4 and the area could be up to 48. So here we're talking about inequalities. So we want that area, and I'm going to use uppercase A to denote area. We want that area to be up to 48. So 48 is like the biggest number that it could be. So could it be 48? Yes, it could. So we need the equal parts of that inequality symbol. Now, should it be bigger or smaller than 48? It says up to 48. So the answer is that 48 is the biggest. So then all the other numbers should be less than that. So then I will read it like that. The area is less than or equal to 48. Now, what do we know about the area of a rectangle? Again, so we're going to have the base times the height, and that should be less than or equal to 48. So we do know a number for the height, 4 units. So we're going to use that. So b times 4. And so to solve for b here, we are going to solve it like if it was an equation. And the 4, you can see is multiplying to the b. So what we need to do is divide by 4, because that is the inverse operation. And so this turns into b is less than or equal. So 48 divided by 4 is 12. And so the correct answer is J. So let's go up now to question 29. And so which expression is equivalent to y times 48? And so let's see. So the correct answer is D, because if we do this part, we will get 40y And then if we do this part here, we will get 8y. Now, if we combine like terms, because they both have the same variable, p and y, we could just add the coefficients, the 40 and the 8, and that will be 48y. So good job on that. So now let's go up to question 30, and we're almost done. So the box plots summarize the attendance for the spring musical and the fall musical. So we have two, one for spring, one for fall. Each musical was performed for 6 evenings. So we know that n is going to be equal to 6. That might not be important, but we'll see. So which statement best describes the data represented in the box plot? So let's see, before looking at the options, some things that I can see is that for the spring musical, the range is from 120 to 200, so we could say that the range, if we subtract that, 200 minus 120, we will get 80. So I can tell you that. I also know that for the fall musical, the range, well, we can see exactly what it is. I'm going to assume it's at 225. So it will be at 225 minus 140. So I know that. I can also tell that the median of each will be where this line is, right here. And so that's actually very useful to know, because we know that for spring, the median is 160, and the median for the fall perhaps is 165. Okay. Now, another interesting thing about this box plots is that the line where your rectangle is, those will tell you how to divide your data. So, for example, this will be the first quarter or quartile, second quartile, third quartile, and then the fourth quartile, right? So, another thing is that this little line here is going to be the median between the first and the second quartile. And so that is also important, because if we're ever asked about the range of the IQR, then we're going to need to know those numbers. So now let's see what the question is. So we need to find a statement. And I have the answer here already. So the range in attendance for the fall musical is 85. So actually that's the one we didn't calculate. Let's see if it's true. So we said this was 140. And this was 225. So 225 minus 140. And so this will be a 5. And then this will be an 8. So 85. Very good. That is true. Let's see why H is not correct. So the interquartile range, oh, that's actually what we were trying to find. So let's find that. And that option was for only the spring musical. So let's see why you got that one wrong. So the spring musical interquartile range. And so what we need from here are this number and this number, because those will be our median for the first 2 quarters and our median for the last 2 quarters. So that median here is going to be 135. And the one here is going to be 195. So if we were to subtract those two, we would actually get 60. So then that's why that is wrong. Okay? So let's go ahead and go to the next one, so 31. And so we have here question 31. Which expression has a value of negative 22? So let's actually do all of them. So let's see. This one is the correct one, by the way. So if we do multiplication first, we're going to get negative 10 minus 12. And so here we have both numbers are negative, so we add them and we keep them negative. Now let's look at the next one. Here we should do this part first. And we can actually do this part at the same time. I know the order of operations, it says, this is like an acronym for it. So this is parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. But one thing is that multiplication and division Just because the M is before the D doesn't mean that you must do multiplication first. You can actually do them at the same time. But let's see. So if we distribute this negative, so this is going to give me actually 8 plus 3. And then here, 33 divided by negative 3 is actually going to be negative 11. So now let's see what we have. So 8 plus 3 is 11 minus 11, so that will be 0. So that's no way that will give you negative 22. The next one, it will be negative 3 and negative 2. So let's just get rid of the parentheses. And here we're going to have negative times negative again. So that will be turn that into a positive 8. And then here we still have a minus 1 in here. And so that will be, if I combine all my negative numbers, I will get negative 6 plus 8. I can read it in reverse, 8 minus 6, so that is 2. And finally here we have negative 12. Here the negative double negative sign will imply that it's a positive. So that's 15, negative 12 plus 15, or 15 minus 12. Those two are equivalent expressions. And so that will be equal to 3. So let's move on to the next problem. Mr. Gonzalez shows students part of the prime factorization of 90. One factor is missing. Okay, so prime numbers, you have to make sure that, first of all, 1 is not a prime number. So the first prime number is 2. So 2, 3, 5, 7, I believe 11, 13, and I think 17 is the next one. I could be wrong. So those are some of our options that we're going to use as factors. And remember, factor is something that you divide a number by, and you get an integer as the answer. And so since we have 90 here, I could divide by 2, only prime numbers. So it will give me 45. And then I could divide, perhaps I could divide 45 by 5. And then I will get 9. Now 9 can only be divided by 3. So if I divide 9 by 3, I get 3. And then I divide one more time by 3. And then 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now once I reach that 1, I know that I'm done doing the prime factorization. So now here, since 3 is repeating, that's why we have the 3 squared times 5. So you got that one right. Good job. So the number that was missing was 5. Make sure you record your answer and fill in the bubbles correctly of the answer document. Sometimes those questions might seem a little annoying or tedious, but they're not that hard. And they could be worth more points. So don't skip them. Let's go to 33. So the graph shows the number of points y. The number of points will be y, the dependent variable, and that a player earns in a balloon game based on the number of balloons the player pops. So the number of balloons popped, that will be x, our independent variable. So depending on the balloons popped, you will earn certain points. So the number of points depends on the number of balloons popped. So we could see the graph there. And which equation best represents the relationship between x and y. So let's see what's going on. So we have a point here at 0, 0. Then we have a point here at 1. So for one balloon popped, you will get 25 points. And then for 2 balloons, you will get 50 points. So you can see that this is going to be a constant increase of 25 points per balloon popped. And so since we have that constant rate of change, we could see that it will be a linear function. And the slope, which is the rate of change, will be 25, or 25 over 1. So we just look at the slope as 25 over 1. You can see that the points will go up 25 and 1 to the right. That is the rise over run. Now, let's see why you got this one wrong. Well, because you should have had the variables are flipped. The independent is the one that goes here, the one that gets multiplied by 25 per point, and then the number of points total will be y. So that's why it's important to read the instructions, and also consider that the y-intercept, which is here, is at 0. So it's either that or without the 0. Okay, so next question. Okay, so we need to go up. So we go to 34. In Austin, Texas, a bats ate 40 grams of insects in one night. At this rate, so same rate, how many grams of insects could 64 bats eat? So this is very easy. It's going to be a proportion. It's going to be a proportion, so let's see. So if we have that A bats will eat 40 grams, and I can place the 40 here, or I can solve it this way. 8, and then for every bat they eat 40 insects. So that ratio, or it could also be like an 8 to 40, right? So the question is, how many grams of insects, and this is grams, let's remember that. How many grams of insects, so that is our question. I'm going to just call that X. Could 64 bats eat? So I can place the 64 here. Now, here what I'm doing is I'm making this row be the row of the bats. And my second row will be the row of the grams of insects. Now, if I set up my proportion the other way, like I was going to from the beginning, A bats eat 40 grams. So then how many grams of insects, so that will be here, my question, could 64 bats eat? So now what I'm doing is that I'm aligning my number of bats vertically, like this. And then my number of grams of the insects that will be eaten will be also aligned vertically. So it doesn't matter which path you take, you will get the same answer. And so the answer will be 64 times 40, because remember that this is an easy way to remember. So you multiply the ones that are across at a diagonal and divide by that number. So it's going to be 64 multiplied by 40 and then divide by 8. Now let's look over here. So we have the same. 64 multiplied by 40 and divided by 8. And so the correct answer for this one, I have it here, is actually going to be 340. So that X here. And I believe this one you had to record the answer as well. So it's 320, not 40. 320, and we're talking about grams of insects. So let's look at 35. Yvonne is researching the effect of education on annual income. A summary of her research is shown in the table. So according to your level of education, so this will be your independent, kind of like if it was your X. And then your dependent is going to be your annual income. And so it makes sense because your annual income depends on how many years you went to school and if you graduated, of course. So let's look at it. And so this will be like your Y, your output. Based on the data in the table, how much more does a person with an associate's degree earn than a person with only a high school diploma? And so here what we had to do is take our associate's degree, which is 40,000 and subtract 33,904. That is question 35. Oh, I see. I almost fell for the same trick. So if we were only going to consider 1 year, yes, we will definitely just subtract that. But if that difference keeps being the same for 10 years, and this is like that little tricky part of the question, 10 years, then what should we do? Well, we should multiply this by 10. So 10, right? So 10, and that will give us this number with that extra 0 at the end. So in this case, you got it wrong because you only consider the difference of 1 year, but the question said of 10 years. Okay, so moving on, we're almost done. We have 3 more left. So which statement about 3 multiplied by 2/3 must be true? So we have 3 here, and let's just do it quickly. 3 over 1 times 2 over 3. Now, one quick way to do this is to just cancel out the 3's. And we don't mean they disappear. We mean they equal a 1. So I could say that I could also multiply straight across. So 3 times 2 is 6. And then denominator with denominator, so that would be 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now, if I wanted to do it the quick way, but maybe this you should wait to do this, you can cancel the 3's, and the answer is 2 over 1, just because we have 1 on top, 1 on the bottom. That's also a very good trick to help yourself when you're doing conversions. So let's see, the correct answer was J. So at first, it doesn't seem like it, but let's see. The first one, you got it wrong because the product is equal to 2, and which is less than 4. So this is why it's wrong. The next one, the product is between 3 and 4. So perhaps like a 3.1 or a 3.5 or a 3.01. Those numbers, and in fact there are so many numbers in between 3 and 4, infinitely many. Now, is the product less than 2/3? Absolutely not. It's more than 3/3. In fact, it's more than 1. So the correct answer will be here. 2 is a number that we know for sure is bigger than 2/3, and we know that it is smaller than 3. So it does fall into that, let's say this is 0, this is 1, 2, and 3. So our solution that we found was a 2. It's right here. And 2/3 is somewhere here. Like if we divide 1 into thirds, 2/3 will be here. So their solution is in between here and here. That's what it means. So let's go to question 37, second to last. So Leon has a goal of walking at least 18 miles. She walks at a rate of 4 miles per hour. Which inequality can Leon use to find H, the number of hours she should walk in order to meet or exceed her goal? So let's see. Her goal is to walk at least 18 miles. So we want that 18 to be either the smallest or the largest number. So let's think about it. Since it says at least, would it be okay if she walks more? Yes. What if she walks 19? That's more than 18, right? So then 18 is the smallest number, but if she does more than that, she will be happy. So we do the equal part, but we could be hopeful, or Leon could be hopeful that she will walk more than 18 miles. So then let's see. She walks at a rate of 4 miles per hour. So that rate right there tells me something like a slope. And remember, here we're not using x and y, we're using h as the independent variable in place of the x. And so we get that inequality right there. And so it's going to be this one. Now, if you look at answer C, it's very similar, but the inequality symbol is reversed. So that's why it's wrong. Now, why is A wrong? Well, because it doesn't say any number of hours plus 4 miles, because that would be something like she walks the same number. It doesn't matter how many hours. It will always be the number of hours plus 4. So it makes no sense. We need to establish this relationship: 4 miles per multiplication hour. Okay, let's go to the last question, 38. So a warehouse floor has a perimeter of 6,615 feet. What is the perimeter of the floor in yards? Oh, conversion. Okay, so for this problem, we know that 1 yard, and I believe that is on your formula sheet, 1 yard is equivalent to 3 feet. Now we have here the perimeter in terms of feet, so we're going to put it here: 6, 6, 1, 5, and this is in feet. And so the question is, what is the perimeter of the floor in yards? So here, this is what we're looking for. So what we're going to do is multiply the ones that are across in a diagonal. So we will have 6,615, and then we're going to divide by this number. So I'm going to do a long division here. So this will be a 2 minus 6, so that will be 0. We drop the next term, which is a 6. We get another 2 here, and then we get minus 6, so that's a 0. We drop the 1. 3 cannot divide 1, so we put a 0. We drop the next number, is a 5. 3 goes into 15 5 times. So that's our answer, G. Why was that wrong? I'm not really sure. Well, actually, yes. One quick way to know is that which one is bigger. Yards is bigger. And so look at this relationship here. So if you have 1 yard for every 3 feet, it makes sense that your number of yards that will go here is going to be smaller than that one, not bigger. And so that's how I would know that's wrong. And this is also wrong. But honestly, if you know how to set up a proportion and you remember this rule, you could answer probably half of this test. So good luck, and thank you for watching the video.